When you suppress such desires, it leads to the manifestation of desire in a very perverse manner, in a way that is beyond your control. And it leads to a lot of problems in life. You cannot overcome desire, you cannot transcend desire by suppressing desire. So none of our spiritual activities are about suppressing something. It is about restraining something, and therein lies the difference. Beauty of all these tenets of Samanya Dharma is that you take only one of them and you sincerely try to practice it in your life. Ultimately, over the decades, you will see that you will attain to some degree all of them.
Welcome to another session of Sangam Talks. We are here for part second of our talk Samanya Dharma with Sri Nitin Sridhar. So, in the first part, we discussed basic notions like what is dharma, what is adharma, and some theories like Chaturvida Purushartha and everything. So, now we are moving to elements of Samanya Dharma, the tenets of Samanya Dharma, which are common. So, uh, a bit of ahimsa we did in the last part of this session only. So let's start with the remaining part of ahimsa. So my first question to you, Nitinji, is uh, in the book you mentioned that true ahimsa is only possible when a person perceives all object in his own inner self and his inner self in all the objects. So, will you please elaborate a bit upon that?
Yes, you might have been, people are very aware of this half verse, so to speak, which says Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, right? Ahimsa is the ultimate dharma. But unfortunately, most of the times we do not realize the true import of what it means to designate Ahimsa as a Parama, or the highest, so to speak. It is not a pacifistic position, and I keep highlighting this when we say that Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. It is not a pacifistic position. It is not a Gandhian version of Ahimsa that most of us are familiar. It is a reality. It is a description of the fact that a deeper reality, that when we attain the highest, there then we become truly established in Ahimsa. What is Ahimsa? In a very simple sense, we can say Ahimsa is uh, non-injury, no himsa. Na himsa is Ahimsa. But it is seen that in our everyday transactional life, no matter how much we try, there is always some form of himsa. For example, take for example our food habits. Forget the consumption of meat and other things, which obviously involves some form of injury. But even consumption of uh, vegetarian food, for example, any cooked food, for example, involves some form of injury, because cooking is an activity which is himsa. It has a himsa involved in it. When you cook, when you fry, when you do something, there are always so many uh, you know uh, organisms that experience injury. Similarly, for example, agriculture. There is lot of himsa involved in agriculture. So, in a transactional world, in a day-to-day activities, it is not possible for us to actually practice ahimsa to 100%, right? That is one. So, so what our dharma has done is, our Hindu, our rishis and our perspective is that for normally for a householder, for people like you and me with desires and who are engaging in the world, ahimsa is a normal vrata. That is, it is something we need to try to the best of our ability. It will not be 100%, but even 60-70%. That is, at least we should try that. We should not commit himsa for some selfish reasons. For example, eating food is not necessarily selfish reason. It's about survival. So, and similarly, doing himsa for a greater good, for example, in self-defense or in protecting the nation, waging the war, These are all different kinds of ahimsa which are allowed in certain circumstances. But for a sannyasi, on the other hand, for a sannyasi who has renounced these attachments to the world, to the desires to the world, ahimsa is a greater Mahavrata, it is called. And for him, for this reason, he cannot even cook his food. He can only eat what is given as bhiksha. So that is a Mahavrata. Therein he follows ahimsa in a more stricter, more austere, more severe manner. You can see this more in the Jain monks, who take it to the extreme level. But be that as it may, but to come back to your question, even then, it is my personal opinion, even for a sannyasi, even then, ahimsa is not fully 100% at unless one attain the highest knowledge, which is Atmagyana, which is what the essence that you mentioned asked me to elaborate. In the Isha Upanishad, of which recently my English commentary has come out a few months back. In the Isha Upanishad, there is a verse which clearly speaks about what is the highest state that one can attain. The highest state, the state of Jivan Mukta, the state of Moksha, the state of freedom, is when one realizes that there is no duality, there is no difference, there is no uh, uh, difference between subject and object, there is no multiplicity. One realizes, yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupushyati. That is what the verse says. That is when one perceives the entire world as one's own self and perceives oneself as pervading entire universe. It is both ways. It is not just I am perceiving myself. I am perceiving myself, the self, Atman alone as real. So when you perceive that Atman alone as real and everything is part of you, everything is this extension of you, and your Atman exists everywhere, uh, then only you can actually practice ahimsa, because you then perceive that the other person is also not the other. He is actually an extension. He's your own self, a different self, but your own self ultimately. This is a deeply philosophical perspective, and this is something we may intellectually understand through such discussions like this, but it has to be attained, it has to be made a reality by sadhana, by your spiritual pursuit. This is now our discussion is at intellectual level. But when we practice it, when we practice take up sadhana, it may be jnana, bhakti, karma, whatever it is, and we pursue on this path, then we attain a state of inner realization, wherein we perceive that Ishavasam idam sarva, the divine pervades everywhere. And this divine is non-different from myself. I am not somebody who is different from the divine. So when this understanding of non-duality happens, then one becomes truly free from himsa. Then even when one such a Jivan Mukta is living in this world, who looks to us like they are like us. For example, Ramana Maharshi was from our recent times is a very good example. You just look at a picture, sometimes we may say he's just like us. He walks like us, he talks like us, but in an inner condition, he's completely detached, completely dispassionate. He completely self-identifies with the entire universe. There is no duality. Therefore, there is no himsa. The root of himsa is duality. Therefore, the solution to the true ahimsa is possible in non-duality. And that is the highest condition. That is why ahimsa paramo dharma. So that is the highest level of ahimsa, that when you finally free yourself from the shackles of this world, from the attachment of this world, from the attachment to desires for this world, then you become established in the truth of non-duality, in the ultimate truth that Brahman alone exists, Atman alone exists, and this knowledge makes you establish. This knowledge itself is ahimsa in a sense. This knowledge itself is the true ahimsa. Because when everything is your own self, then there can be no scope for any form of injury. For even what appears as injury, what appears as himsa in a transactional level, will be seen as a different manifestation of your own self. Therefore, it ceases to be an injury. You, for example, and in the Gita, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sri Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna, while explaining to Arjuna, he says, the Atman is that which cannot be pierced, it cannot be broken, it cannot be destroyed in any way. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says on the battlefield that to Arjuna, that do not worry that you are killing this person or that person. The Atman cannot be killed. Atman cannot be killed because Atman is the only reality and Atman is eternal. This understanding is what is true ahimsa, because then you see that everything that happens in the transactional universe, what we differentiate as dharma, adharma, what we differentiate as injury, non-injury, everything is understood as a manifestation of the divine. Everything becomes a leela or a play. So there is no real injury. So that is the highest state of ahimsa. That is why ahimsa is paramadharma. At the highest level, that is the true meaning of ahimsa. But that does not mean, again, this is a very important point to stress, that today we simply, say that no, our Atman is real, every world is unreal, so let me go and murder anybody and nothing will happen to me. Not like that. Because if you are murdering somebody, so that means you are attached to this world. You are identifying with your name and body, and you have certain desires, you have certain feelings of revenge and everything. So then all the other prohibitions will come into play, that you should not hurt anybody, you should not be selfish, you should practice satya, ahimsa, and all the samanya dharma, all comes into play. So you should not never confuse the highest reality that is the goal to attain to our immediate reality, which is transactional universe. They both, we have to be very careful in understanding what applies to the vyavaharika, the transactional phase, and what is the ultimate. I hope this clarifies.
Yes, very well. And the path of dharma takes us finally to the, what we say Tattvamasi in the Chandogya Upanishad, like the inner consciousness and all. So, Nitinji, just a casual question: do you think that every ritual or every law that was practiced in the Hindu tradition, does it was a way to lead to the ultimate divine or moksha?
Yes, definitely. In the Hindu perspective, all life is divine. Everything is sacred. There is really no distinction between secular and sacred. All that is considered as laukika is also the path to moksha, is also a way to attain paraloka and moksha. Everything is sacred. So you can take any dance, you can take any art form, you can take even a reading of Shastra, for example. It is said that when you do Swadhyaya, then that Swadhyaya itself gives you punyam, which results in purification of the mind, which ultimately helps you to take you nearer to moksha. So everything is a spiritual path if you pursue it in that framework of mind. See, that is all. What that is the gist of karma yoga, right? See, what is karma yoga? You are doing your duties. You are avoiding what is nisheda, what is prohibited in the shastras, what is considered as adharma, and you practice dharma, but practice it in a way that you perceive it as a yoga. That is, you practice it in a nishkama, in a detached manner, and with a sense of duty, and trying to overcome the notion of doership. Then that itself takes you to the ultimate knowledge that of Tattvamasi that you spoke. Eventually, it will take. So all paths eventually converge, eventually lead one to that ultimate knowledge of Brahmatma Ikyam, Tattvamasi, that Upanishadic knowledge that the Veda has revealed. It doesn't matter which path it is. But again, a caveat here, when I say it doesn't matter which path it is, You cannot say that does, for example, Islam or Christianity lead to that path, that ultimate goal. It does not, because their conception of the goal itself is different. We have to understand, see, even in Hindu darshanas, we have different paths, and all paths have some concept of moksha, and their definition of moksha may not be same. When we go into the technicalities, for example, a Vishishtadvaitin or a Dvaitin defines moksha in a slightly different from a Advaitin. But the essential definition of moksha across all Indian traditions, philosophy, is same. That freedom from dukkha and attainment of permanent sukha. And that definition remains. And we have to be therefore careful when we speak about Hindu Dharma, we tend to get carried away by applying these concepts without any thought to everything in the world. That is not so. We have to be careful. So, what the Hindu Dharma, the universal vision that it gives, that holds valid as long as, with respect to those who subscribe to that worldview. That is important. For example, the Abrahamic ideologies, they do not subscribe to that world. They pose themselves fundamentally opposite to them. So, from our perspective, they are not dharma at all. They may be called religions, they may be called ideologies, but they are not dharma. All dharmas lead to moksha. All dharmic paths lead to moksha. But adharmic paths cannot lead to moksha. And that is where some of us make a mistake to designate the adharmic path as dharmic path.
So, in your book, when you mention Satya, you mention a beautiful verse there. So, it says, and I'm reading the English translation which is there in the book. It says, "Speak truth, speak pleasant. Do not speak unpleasant truth, nor also pleasant falsehood. This is the eternal law." So it's delightful to hear, but at the same time, it's sophisticated for the mind to comprehend, And basically, or maybe I am not, I'm unable to do that. My understanding is not of that level. So, where Nitinji, I'll just break down the verse so that I can explain you where I am getting confused. So basically, my confusion line lies in the solely in the second line, which says, "Do not speak unpleasant truth." So in Hindi also we usually say कि सच कड़वा होता है, but then here it says कि don't speak unpleasant truth. So if a truth is unpleasant or bitter for someone, should I not speak that, or is it adharma to speak such truth?
Okay. Wonderful question. The verse comes from Manusmriti, the much maligned but truly treasure of our culture, the Manusmriti. I will read out the Sanskrit verse also for the benefit of the viewers. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat satyam apriyam, priyam na anritam bruyat, yesha dharma sanatana. So basically, it is saying first point it says is speak truth, and then it adds a clause to it where it says speak what is priya, what is pleasant to the hearer. But so this is two criteria. First, it says the first criteria, first important tenet here is speak truth. But as a clause, additional clause, it says speak truth in such a way that it is pleasant to the hearer. That is, you should not, if such may be kadava, that is fine. But you can, there are different ways to speak it also. For example, if there is a patient who needs, who is who has some terminal cancer or whatever it is, they should be told the truth that is there, but they should not be told in a way that is harmful to them, right? They should be told in a way which causes minimal damage. That is the essence of it. So, na bruyat satyam apriyam means it has different connotations. For example, let me take we have seen this in our families or in our societies. sometimes the neighbor comes, or some auntie or uncle or some relatives come and tell one's parents, "Oh, I saw your kid there doing something with something, going to the movie, and somehow we have gone to that movie without informing the parents," which is wrong, definitely, which should not have been done in the first place, but still, you have done it, and somebody else is coming and saying that they're speaking truth, but that truth is not useful to anybody. They're merely saying it. See, going to movie is not a crime, right? I mean, if it had been a crime, it had been something else. That's a different issue. But the point I'm saying is, they're speaking truth, but that truth is not helping anybody. It is not Priya. It is not Priya to anybody. This may be a crude example, or you can take many other examples wherein people gossip behind the back. That is, I think, a better example people would appreciate. And gossiping is considered as adharma by the Manu Dharma Shastra and others. Why? Because gossiping is not necessarily we speak only lies. We speak some behind somebody's back, but most of it has some element of truth in it. But such truth is not useful, right? It is useless. It is not. It is unpleasant because it is useless. So, when we speaking that do not speak truth which is unpleasant, we need to be understand that we should ask ourselves: is this truth helpful to the person to which we are saying, or it is not helpful? Is it harmful? It is simply going to cause suffering to the सामने वाला person को दुख देगा. Basically, that is the question. Because many of the times we have all these inner tendencies, we don't even realize it. For example, uh, you go to a person who is, say, a bit fat, and tell him, "You're fat, you're fat," you keep teasing him, "You're fat, you're fat." That is hurting him. And you are doing it for pure pleasure. You may give any form of justification, but it is you're deriving some kind of pleasure. How is it correct? He may be fat. If you are really concerned about his well-being, then you will not be insulting him, or you will not be trying to be condensing towards him, right? So that is the basically what the verse is saying. You speak truth, but speak it in a manner which is not apriya to the person. That is, which is not. See, it is very difficult to translate these words into English. Pleasant may not fully capture what is priya. So it is basically simply that you should not speak it in such a way that it is hurting the others. You should try to. Sometimes the truth itself is so bitter that it will cause some form of hurt. That is fine as long as you are doing it for the greater good of that person, not for some selfish reason, but for the good of that person. And you are doing it in a way, the best possible manner, that you are possible to, you're not exaggerating, you're not gossiping, you're not backbiting, you're not using it for some selfish words, but for the welfare of that. Similarly, that is why the verse then clarifies, just because I am saying do not speak truth which is unpleasant, doesn't mean you have to speak lies which is pleasant. You cannot speak falsehood which is just because it is pleasant. That happens a lot of times today. In a work environment, the subordinates always speak what is pleasant to the bosses, and to get some kind of perks. And now I don't want to use the term. We all know what the term is for such people. But that happens all the times. So this is what the verse basically says, that speak truth is the first criteria, but then it says how you should do that, in what context. And our acharyas have said that sometimes it is better to stay mauna, stay silent, than to speak nonsense, or than to speak even truth which is not helpful to anybody. If something is true, that may be true, fine, but if it is not helpful to somebody, then why should you to speak about that to him? Why should you gossip, for example? When two people gossip about the third person, it is not helping the third person, and it is not even helping those who are indulging in gossiping. And I know we all love, most of us love gossiping in some way or the other. And to some extent, we can say that is fine also. But when it crosses a certain level, then you have to put a stop. Otherwise, it is not only unhelpful, it will become adharma. Because if you are indulging too much of everything, it is problematic. It will create kind of vasanas and samskaras in your mind, that the gossiping will become your second nature, and that then you are in a real mess.
So moving on to our next question, Nitinji, wherein you express the internal cleanliness aspect of the saucha, you say that removal of internal impurities like kama, krodha, lobh, or matsarya is expected. So when you say kama, like in today's context, we generally translate kama into desire or pleasure. So in also the previous part of this series, you explained that not everybody of us is gonna attain moksha in our present lives. So what about rest of us? Should they not have any desire, or should they not seek for pleasures?
That's a wonderful question. I mean, and it's a very important one. Karma is an interesting category, and I would like to refer all those audience of this session to refer to my essay on karma as a purushartha, which is a detailed study published. It was my dissertation for my master's, and it is published in Indic today. And I have given a talk which is available on YouTube also. Karma as a purushartha. It is important because there is a lot of misconception about karma in most of us today. Karma is desire, karma is also pleasure. It is both the means and the goal. And there are different conceptions, different ways to look at karma, uh, uh, depending upon from which perspective, yes. The same Hindu tradition which speaks about karma as a impurity, it is part of this Arshad Varga that we mentioned. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, the six internal impurities, the six passions, or it is also part of something else called as Ashtapashas, the eight bounds, the eight chains that bind us to this world. But at the same time, it is also seen as a Purushartha, the goal of life, one of the important goals of life. It is also seen as something which itself can be seen as the highest goal of life also. We have also conception wherein the moksha itself is a karma. The ananda itself is a special manifestation. But to put things in a perspective, we all have desires, and that is the root. That is a fact which cannot be denied. That we are all desires. We all have desires. The desires could be any form of desire. It could be, for example, desire to earn more money. It could be desire to have family, kids. It could be desire for earning dharmic merit, what is called as punyam, and attain swarga, have a good afterlife. Or it could be desire for even moksha, the ultimate, even that is a desire. The mumukshatva is a special form of desire, burning desire to attain that ultimate reality, to attain that ultimate happiness, eternal happiness. But ultimately, they are all desire. And the fact is, this desire is at the root cause of our existence. It is at the root cause of this duality. It is at the root cause of this creation of this universe. So, unless you transcend this desire, then you cannot attain the ultimate goal. So, therefore, while desire or karma is one of the purushartha and an important purushartha, so in conventional model of purushartha, we have dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Moksha is placed last, dharma is placed first, and artha and kama is placed in the middle. Why? Because through dharma, it is not, nobody says, in our tradition, nobody says, do not pursue kama. That was your question, right? Should we not pursue kama? Nobody is saying do not pursue kama because you already have desires. When you have desires, you cannot say that I will not pursue. Because when you suppress such desires, it leads to the manifestation of desire in a very perverse manner, in a way that is beyond your control. And it leads to a lot of problems in life. You cannot overcome desire, you cannot transcend desire by suppressing desire. So none of our spiritual activities are about suppressing something. It is about restraining something, and therein lies the difference. So it says that you cannot suppress desire, but there are different ways to pursue the desire. One is the recklessness way, when I say that my way or highway, and whatever I want, I will get it. I don't mind about consequence. That is, if I want to make money, I will rob a bank. If I want to fulfill sexual desires, I will just go and do whatever I want. So that is one way. That is adharma. That leads to a lot of suffering to the person itself. It may be in this life, they may ultimately go to jail, for example, or it may be next life. They may have been born in such a place, such a condition. They may have certain severe illness. They may have some other conditions wherein they will be in deep suffering. They won't even know that why they are in suffering, but they will be in suffering. In our conventionally, we have this मेरा यही खराब है मेरा कर्म खराब है या मेरे मार्ग पे लिखा नहीं. In Kannada also we have this proverbs. It's essentially the wisdom of this only, that we might have performed some very heinous crimes or adharma in our previous lives, the result of which we are suffering now. So, but there is also dharmic way. That is why dharma is placed first and artha and kama is placed later. That if you want to pursue your desire, fulfill your desire, pursue it in a dharmic way. Pursue it through the mechanism of dharma. Then you can attain all your desires. What is the definition of dharma? That which leads to abhyudaya nishrayasa. It gives overall well-being, well-being in this world, well-being in the next world, and also takes you on the path towards moksha. So it is not that you should not practice, pursue desire, but by pursuing desire through dharmic mechanism, through in a dharmic way, that is through restraint, that is indriya nigraha, and in a very cautious and very conscious and cautious manner, you slowly purify the mind such that you transcend desire. You attain vairagya. That is why in this context you have to understand the designation of kama as a arishat varga, or an internal enemy or internal passion. That all our actions are controlled or decided or are influenced by these 6 factors. Kama or attachment. Here, kama is less of a desire, more of attachment. And desire and attachment are always connected, fine. But still, here it means attachment. That you have some form of attachment to something. And you have a desire for something. You want something, then you become attached to that idea. For example, I want to, for example, for some person wants to say, I don't know, get some job or something. Here's, for example, they want to get into IIT and they put in lot of efforts for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And ultimately, while they were making that effort, they were attached to that idea that they have become IITian. And if they fulfill that, they will have fulfillment or happiness for a while, maybe 1 month. And then once they get into college and they see the reality, then say, okay, it slowly wanes away. Then they will be attached to the idea that I am an IITian, but they won't be feeling any happiness. And if by chance you fail to become an IIT, get into IIT, then for your whole life you will be attached to that idea as a regret, as a frustration, as an anger, as a demotivation. It may cause you lose your self-confidence. It may take you on a downward spiral path. So this is the problem of attachment. That is why the nishkama karma is given, is said to be the best way. You pursue your goals without being attached to it. It is not easy to do, but you have to try it. So this kama, then krodha, anger. We always say things, do things when we are angry, and later we regret it. And it, whatever goes out of our mouth and we do with our actions, it is, you cannot retrieve it back. You can say sorry, fine, but it does not go away. You cannot take it, no matter how much you. So it has caused the destruction that will. So kama, krodha, mada is another pride. By pride, I remember pride and prejudice, matsarya, jealousy. So these are all very things we, if we just self introspect ourselves on a daily basis, we are all influenced by our actions are influenced by all these things. We get angry, we get jealous. This happens to everybody, and nobody is an exception. Perhaps a high level sadhaka who has attained vairagya is an exception, but otherwise, all of us are not have this. We see our childhood friend making more money than us or getting first rank in the class. Even a silly things that somebody's father gives them say 100 rupees per day as a pocket money, and our father gives us 10 rupees, then we feel jealous. Oh, why is my father not like that? I'm jealous of that guy. We lose the first rank in even a class test by 1 mark, then we say we are jealous of that person who is ahead of. So this is very small things. We have these tendencies, we have all these tendencies that control our actions, that determine how we think. And only way you can move ahead in the spiritual path, in the life path, because as I said in Hindu Dharma, all life is sacred. All life is an attempt to attain that ultimate goal of moksha. Ultimately attain that Brahman or the Ishvara. So if you want to move in that goal, then you have to change yourself. You have to become free from these impurities of the mind. Because without this, as long as you are rooted in these impurities, you have these impurities controlling your actions, then you cannot attain that ultimate goal. All spiritual paths, bhakti, karma, and mantra sadhana, even yoga, everything, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all this are the first stage in them is to help you become free of this internal enemy. And that is why this practice of Samanya Dharma is most important, because this is the first goal. Unless you practice the Samanya Dharma, the ethical tenets, you cannot free yourself from these mental impurities. See, I spoke about two forms of Dharma, Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma, right? The Vishesha Dharma is very important because it is important aspect of our Swadharma, because no two person is same. But the foundation of that Vishesha Dharma is the Samanya Dharma, which is the driving factor as far as our spiritual journey is concerned. That is why Bhagavad Gita gives more stress on the Samanya Dharma aspect rather than on Vishesha Dharma aspect. So the Samanya Dharma, the tenets like Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, these are all most basic tenets which when we cultivate, it helps us to overcome these internal impurities. For example, the tendency for violence, the tendency for injury, and this tendency need not be that everybody is a murderer. No, that injury can be even mental. That I may be jealous of my neighbor who is more richer than me, then I may have this feeling of jealousy that say somehow if he falls, then I will be happy. We all have. We cannot. Many of us cannot tolerate the success of others. That is also him. So, what is the way to overcome that? Is daya, compassion. There is a Puranic story wherein the gods, the humans, and the devatas went to Prajapati Brahma and requested for instruction, and he gave the only one term, da. Da. What is da? The asuras understood da as daya. because they lack compassion. They are always in a violent mode. They're completely ruthless. So they understood that for them, for their spiritual emancipation, Daya is the most important. In the case of humans, humans understood it as Dhamma. There is Daya and there is Dhamma and there is Dana. Humans understood it as Dana. Why? Because humans are very selfish creatures. We always want to hold things, we don't want to give it to anybody else. Now that COVID, when the first wave of COVID happened, a lot of us, see, stocking things for 1 or 2 months sake is one thing, but holding things for 1 year when there is a scarcity and creating scarcity is completely different. So we saw that. So the solution to this selfishness is dana, giving away to the needy. When we see somebody who is in needy giving away, then dana could be of many forms. It can be giving away of knowledge, giving away of food, giving away of even life. The people, the soldiers who die in the battlefield, why do they attain Swarga? Because they are doing pranadana. They are giving up their life for the sake of the nation and for the sake of all the people. That is the another da. And for the devas, because they indulge in all kind of sensory pleasures, the da meant dhamma, that is self-control. Restrain yourself in your pursuit of pleasure. And it is not that only dana is applicable to humans. It is basically an account which says that all the three are applicable to us. We should follow daya, we should follow dhamma, we should follow dana. And all the three are samanya dharma. You see how it is connected. The ethical tenets, the samanya dharma is the key for our progress. And it is key for causing the purification of the mind, which is afflicted with kama, krodha and all. In this context, that kama is considered as the internal enemy. It is not that kama is something negative. We do not have a Christian notion of kama, desire as sin. So if that were case, then our ancestors would not have written Kama Sutras, and it is not just Vatsyayana who has written it. There is a whole tradition of Kama Shastra texts. There is a Rati Rahasya, there is one text by one of the kings of Mysore also. So there is so many. There are 10 or 12 texts on available texts on Kama Shastra. So it is not. If it was prohibited, it was considered sin, then they would not have written it. Kama is a arishad varga. It is not a sin. It is not adharma per se. How you pursue that kama will decide upon whether you are performing dharma or other. That's all.
So since we are talking about desires and all, and you also mentioned the Indriya Nigraha. So how should a person practice Indriya Nigraha, which is, I guess, the last tenet of Samanya Dharma mentioned in Manusmriti, right? Yeah.
Yes. Indriya Nigraha is perhaps the most important tenet. And, what I mentioned now, it's also in Bhagavad Gita, wherein, when Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, those who dwell upon objects and from this dwelling upon the objects rises attachment. And from attachment, I'm just reading out the translation from the book. From attachment grows desire. From desire springs anger. And from anger follows delusion. From delusion, failure of memory. And failure of memory gives rise to loss of intellect. And from loss of intellect, one perishes. And that is why we have to be very careful about kama, krodha, and these are all three gates to hell. That is what he said. Kama is one of the gate to hell, attachment. And the solution, as I already explained, is dhamma, which is self-control. And this self-control or indriya nigraha is of two kinds. We have two kinds of indriya nigraha. Indriyas. Indriya means sense organs or senses, the faculty of senses rather than the organs. See, we have these organs in the physical, the eyes and ears and all. But the indriya refers to the faculties or the power the power to see, the faculty of perception, the faculty of hearing. So there are five Gyanendriyas, that are indriyas of knowledge, that is our eyes, ears, hearing, seeing, speaking, not speaking, hearing, seeing, and all. And the five faculties of function, karmendriyas, which is, you know, the, the activities we perform from our hands, from our legs, the speech, and all this stuff. So these are all there. Anybody can search, just Google search and there. Karmendriya, Gyanendriya. So that forms the 10 indriyas. The 11th indriya is the internal indriya, which is mind or manas. So we have 11 indriyas in total. The 11 senses. The external, which is about hearing, listening, with the perceiving with the eyes, and the walking, and all these things, the actions and the knowledge, all the senses. And then we have the mind, which controls all of it. A good way to understand, you have to restrain them. That is what Indriya Nigra is, restrainment of, or for a good example would be, I think this is the Upanishadic imagery, which there's a horse, chariot, horse, and how one puts a rein on the horse. The horses, if I remember correctly, they are the senses, and they have to be restrained with the reins. It is not that horses are not running, horses are not at station, but horses are made to run in a particular direction. They are not allowed to go here and there wherever they like. They are directed by a higher mind, higher resolve, higher conviction to go towards only that which is really needed, that which is really beneficial. And that is what must be done that is what the gist of Indriya Nigra. What happens? We are walking on a street. We see Golgappe ka dukaan hai. Oh, I like Golgappa, I like Pani Puri, or I like ice cream. And we go and eat. It's not just we eat one ice cream. We eat 2 or 3 ice creams at a stretch. And then when we fall ill, then we think, oh, we should not have done. But then again, after a month or so, you go on the same street, you go to the same ice cream shop, you again eat 2 or 3 times. You do not learn anything from your past. So eating ice cream because you like it is not the issue per se to begin with. But pursuing the desire in a reckless manner, in an uncontrolled manner, without any responsibility, without any care for the consequences of your action, that is the problem. So what is the solution? Solution is to restrain your action, control your action, or direct your actions to those desires which are truly beneficial to you. How do you do it? You do it that involves, for example, self-introspection. When a desire arises, you have a lot of pulling. You ask yourself, is it really needed to me? Is it really helpful to me? Does it really make me happy? If yes, then the second question is, how should I go about it? I know it's easy to say and difficult to do, but these are the things we need to cultivate in our life slowly. It does not happen over the night. Then how should we pursue such a desire? And then to what extent should we pursue that? So a better example is, everybody needs money for survival. So the question is, how do I get that money? Do I rob a bank? Perhaps that is easier. That is also not easy. For a novice, even robbing is not easy. But should I rob a bank? Perhaps I could take some pocket money from my friend's purse. That would be perhaps easy. Or I'll just loan the money and then go kaput from the city, and then I'll loan lakhs of rupees from everybody and go away. These are the things that mind brings up. So we have to put a stop to such thoughts. Indriya Nigraha is all about that. Putting a stop to these indriyas and redirecting them to only what is beneficial. So I don't know how many are aware, how to use the horses, the horses that are tied to the horse cart, usually they have this putty on their eyes, they can only see what is in the front. They cannot see on what is on their sides. That is done so that they do not become distracted and they see only their front and go in that direction. Indriya Nigraha is all about that. We put a stop, we put a kind of a mask or whatever, we kind of put a boundary on our senses such that we direct it in a proper manner. We restrain them, we control them, and use them only to what is truly necessary. And the definition of what is truly necessary can change from person to person. For a sannyasi, what is necessary is very different from what we grihasthas for us is. Desires cannot be overcome by suppressing it. It can be only transcended by pursuing it in a restrained manner, such that we attain a state wherein we attain the purification of the mind and we become dispassionate. See, the only true solution to desire is dispassion. You do not get the desire at the first place at all. That is the only solution. But when you get the desire, when you have the desire, you have to follow it in a restrained manner, and that is what is Indriya Nigraha is.
Nitinji, in the book you mention a tenet, a Samanya Dharma tenet, which is given in the Bhagavad Purana, Titiksha. So, does Titiksha translate to digesting all the sorrows without thinking of revenge?
In a sense, yes. Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankaracharya in his Viveka Chodamani gives a wonderful definition of Titaksha. He says, Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam Apratikara Purvakam Chinta Vilaparahitam Tatitiksha Abhidiyate. And the second line is very important. First line is what you said. Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam. Endure all the sorrows that come to in your life apratikara purvakam, without feelings of revenge. But second line is important. Chinta vilapa rahitam, without any chinta, without any vilapa. That is, it is not that you have to suffer. You have to endure the suffering in a way in which you are unhappy, in which you are being affected by that suffering. So that is not titaksha. If you are titaksha, if you are in a state of titaksha, then you are not unhappy. Even if the boulder falls upon your head, you are not disturbed in the mind. That is titaksha. That is, there is no chinta, there is no worry, there is no sorrow inside your mind. I think you get the difference. It is not saying that when the problems come to you in life, you just lay down, and it is not a defeatist attitude that is being promoted here. You just lay on the ground, oh no, and you put your hands on your head, oh no, my life is gone, everything is suffering, there is nothing left for me to do. Let me just suffer and die. That is not what is titaksha is. That defeatist attitude is you're not taking revenge because you do not have power to take revenge. That is helplessness. Here in titaksha, you're not taking revenge, or you do not even giving scope for revenge, scope or feelings for revenge, because you are not being affected by all that is being thrown at you. The life always throws at you various situations, various problems, various conditions. But if you are in a state of Indriya Nigra, control of your mind and the senses, you are in a Sthita Pragya, in a state of complete steadiness, then you become unaffected by all these things. And that is the essence of Titaksha. Basically, it is that and that is for your good. See, just imagine a person who is always influenced by external circumstances. He or she will will never be able to take action in a very detached, in a clear manner, with a clear mind. There will be always passions and emotions will be running around, and their decisions are colored by it may be sorrow, it may be happiness, whatever it is, colored by them, and such decisions are rarely right. They may be right sometimes, they may be wrong most of. So, but a detached person, on the other hand, is not perturbed by what the world throws at you, and he knows what he wants, he does not want, and he keeps at his path. He is not perturbed by, he is not disturbed by the external circumstances. in his pursuit of his goal, whatever that goal may be. So in the corporate context, if a leader is uninfluenced by other emotions, other negativities that surrounds him, then he can take decisions which are more useful, which have a lot of clarity in them, compared to another leader who is always influenced by the negativity around him. He is always thinking, what will others think? What will be? What all the negative? Somebody may like me, somebody may hate me. What will I do about it? So that cannot be the approach. See, but dispassion or detachment or sthapargya or titaksha does not mean lack of compassion. It does not mean, and being somewhat like a arrogant or something like that. See there is a thin line that distinguishes between them. Being arrogant does not mean being titaksha. Being helpless does not mean titaksha. Titaksha means your confidence in your own self and your self control. You have mastery in your mind and the senses, and you know what you want to do, what you want to achieve, what is the goal, and you pursue it with a clear and calm mind. A disturbed mind cannot take proper decisions. A calm mind alone can take a proper, and that is what Titaksha is all about. Again, it is easier said than done. It is a different, and the beauty of all these tenets of Samanya Dharma is that you take only one of them and you sincerely try to practice it in your life. Ultimately, over the decades, you will see that you will attain to some degree all of them, not just the one of them. If you sincerely try to practice titaksha, you will ultimately attain even ahimsa, satya, and everything else. Or you take satya as one criteria that you practice, then that will also lead to ahimsa, and titaksha and indriya nigra, because they are all intimately connected. Because all of them has to do with your mind and how to tame the monkey called mind. Your mind is a monkey, always jumping around here and there. I want this, I want that, I want to do this, I want to do this. This person hurt me, that person hurt me. I want to take this revenge, I want to take that revenge. This is always there. So you try to get entry into that mind, try to chain the leg of that monkey by one way or the other. So once you chain them, then all it becomes completely changed in every other way. So let us, for example, Manu lists only 5 Samanya Dharma, but Bhagavad Purana gives a list of, in one place it gives, I think, 33 or 34 of these tenets. So we may feel overwhelmed when we see this list. How can I practice all the 33 of? It seems impossible. The key is to calmly understand that these are the different aspects, how the mind functions, and how we have to be aware of these, and we have to change that, but to go about it one at a time. And if you pursue one, then ultimately it will lead you to pursue of other by automatically without even you realize.
So, Nitinji, let us discuss a bit about Danam or charity. You mentioned different types of charities in the book, and which one of them adheres to Dharma the most? Because nowadays, our definition of charity and philanthropy is very weird. Do tax exemptions, take bribes, and then give, do philanthropy. So, please explain us.
So basically, I think in Bhagavad Gita, if I'm not mistaken, Dhanam is divided into Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika. And again, I'm saying this from memory. Uh, Basically, obviously, by the names, it is obvious that a Sattvika Dhanam is considered as the highest and Tamasika as the lowest. And Sattvika is highest because wherein we are doing Dhanam without any selfish motive, without any motive for name, fame, or whatever it is. Not even for a punyam. We are not even doing it with a desire that I will get punyam. Dana gives punyam, karmic merit, fine. But we are not doing it to gain that punyam. That is sattvic dana. And second part of that is that dana has to be always given to deserve. You know, it cannot. If you give it to undeserved, it is not dana. That is also important. For example, uh, only when you feed the hungry, then that becomes annadana. If you give simply give food somebody who is always already well fed, then that is not annadana. So there are the Shastras give different stipulations about what kind of dana can be given to which kind of person and which context. So that is Satvika Danam, highest Danam, wherein you do it in a Nishkama Dasha without hankering for any fruit. You do it because it is your duty. You do it out of pure love and compassion. And then there is Rajasika Danam, wherein you basically do it with some form of selfish motive. There is some form of motive, subtle desire, for example, uh, that name or attachment to the very idea that I am a big dani, I am a big giver of charity. You know, we all have this today. For example, if somebody gives big money for some institution, a plaque is made in his or her name and their description and put it there. You know, this person has given this $1 million as charity for this institution. That is Rajasic Dan. There are a lot of anonymous donors who are basically doing Satvika Dan. And then there is tamasic dhanam. Basically, tamas is about all inertia and dullness and activity from ignorance and delusion, wherein you're kind of, you think that dhanam is more of a give and take thing, you know. I give you this, I want something in return, some form of benefit. It goes much beyond what a Rajasic way of doing is. It's a much, all those things you mentioned about taking tax benefit is not per se wrong considering today's situation, I would say. but but if you are doing something purely to take tax benefit, then that is not really dana. That is maybe charity, but it is not dana. If you are doing some dana purely for that is not dana. Perhaps that is a tamasic kind of dana, you can say. So the highest kind of dhanam, the one which truly is beneficial to one person, is sattvika, and even rajasika is okay. But I would like to add that dana of any kind is okay. It is not, though tamasic dana is inferior to sattvika and rajasika dana, but that also is beneficial in some way. The opposite is what is the true enemy here, that to hoard everything, to hoard everything. So dana is beneficial whatever reasons you do it for. But of course, now we have these tendencies that you mentioned, that we earn a lot of money from corruption and then we do philanthropic activities. And we have in mind that somehow these philanthropic activities will take away or nullify all that adharma we committed to get that money. That is not true. That will never happen. Philanthropic activities may gain you some punyam, that is fine, but it will not take away the corruption, the crime that you have committed. More importantly, the money earned through some form of corruption and crime itself is a tainted money, and that taint will not go away. That taint will, they say, it's karmically tainted, I would say. It is morally, ethically tainted, and that taint will not go away. You have to face the consequences of it. Just because you donate that to somewhere else, it does not mean that somehow you become purified of the taint that has attached. So this is important to understand.
In the book, you mentioned trigunas of a person which influence the nature of that person. So tell us more about it. Like, are they inbuilt or can their state be altered? And the second question about this that I have is in the Mahabharata text, when Shri Krishna asked Duryodhana to give up his adharmic causes, he says a verse, and I'll quote him. It's Janami dharmam nachame pravritti. Even if I know what is dharma, I cannot get myself to practice it. Janami papam nachame nivritti. Even if I know what is adharma, I cannot retire from it. Kenapi devena hridi sthitena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. So there are some forces inside me which force me to do that act, and I do whatever they force me to do. So is this because of his gunas?
The forces which prevent us to do what we actually want to do, perhaps if we have that knowledge. In most of our cases, we do not even have that clarity or knowledge. It is because of this Arishat Varga that I said, Kama, Krodha, Mada, and all, the Vasanas and Samskaras. But they are all again connected to your Trigunas, We are all made up of these Trigunas, and the entire universe is made up of these Trigunas, which is basically the Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The whole purpose of spiritual journey is to transcend these Trigunas, basically. And through the and first the journey starts from transforming oneself from being rooted in tamas to being rooted then in rajas and finally to sattva and finally overcoming that also, transcending sattva. That is moksha. But we will make a very big mistake if we think that all of this happen will in a single life. If all of these things can happen in a single life, then Duryodhana would not have said that I know what is dharma, but I am unable to do it. He would have simply said, no, okay, I can simply change I will go to school, I will go to some course, and quickly I will change my guna. That does not happen. The change comes very slow, and dharma is all about this. The Swadharma, the Samanya Dharma, Vishesha Dharma is all about bringing about this transformation over many lives. See, the karma, the actions that we do, the dharma that we do, it leads to a kind of chitta shuddhi slowly over many lives. So that is why I say whatever actions we do, the fruit of those actions we get in our next life. And whatever situations that we are facing today, it is the result of our own actions in our past life. So when we are born in this life, our birth is not an accident. The parents to whom we are born is not an accident. The social, the economical or cultural condition we are born is not an accident. The location we are born is not an accident. The kind of people we meet in life is not an accident. Nothing is an accident. All that it is a continuous journey of this jiva, each of us, individual, through many, many lives. And whatever situations we face in this life is a result of our previous action. And the people we meet, or many of them, are those with whom we had a Rinabandha, karmic bond, connection, some way or the other. But what is in our hands is our free will. What a decision we make. See, life always puts you multiple choices every mode of your life. And what decision, the choices that it puts in front of you is based on your previous actions. But the choice you make today from the different choices available, that is in your hands. So we are born with a definite set of samskaras, definite kind of proportion of these gunas. So that is the basis of this varnashrama dharma. The humanity is divided largely into 4 forms of varnas in a theoretical setup, and from there all this varna shankara and everything, the whole discourse. So the varna is by birth because our past activities decide where we are born and with what kind of mental setup we are born, what kind of kama krodha we have, what proportion of them we have, what kind of competency we have, what kind of temperaments we have, what kind of samskara, vasana, and guna proportion we have. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, when it said that there are 4 gunas. Shankaracharya and other Bhashyakaras also mention that, for example, Brahmana is one who is rooted in Sattva Guna predominant. The first guna, predominant guna is Sattva Guna, and then there is Rajoguna. There is also a little bit of Tamas. A Kshatriya is one who has a predominance of Rajas and Sattva, but Rajas is more predominant than Sattva. Tamas is a little. Vaishya is one who has Rajas and Sattva and Rajas as important gunas, but Rajas is predominant and Sattva is little, and Tamas is also little. And Shudra is one who has Rajas and Tamas, but Tamas is more predominant. So in Vaishya, Rajas is predominant, Tamas is less. In Shudra, Tamas is predominant and Rajas is less. So this is basically a very broad theoretical framework or broad framework for understanding human mind, human quality. But in reality, most of us do not have this very clear-cut compositions of gunas. We are in a more complicated way because all of this are continuously dynamic at play. Sometimes the Sattva-guna manifests, sometimes the Rajoguna manifests, sometimes Tamas-guna manifests. But essentially speaking, our Varna or our Swabhava, because Varna is Swabhava, is decided by our Prarabdha Karma, that is our actions in the past life. The fruit of that action, whatever level of purification we gained in our past lives, will be the starting point of this life. So now in this life, it doesn't matter. For example, you are born somewhere, you have very economically poor family. But by sheer strength of willpower and hard work, in a dharmic manner, you pursue it very diligently, that path, and attain success. And not just that, you are also compassionate, you give dhanam, you give charity, you give lot of punyam. Then that means that you have attained enough purification of the mind through your work, through the practice of ethical tenets, like hard work, like compassion, the dana, etc. That in a next life, perhaps you may be born in a very rich family. There is a very interesting story. I think it is perhaps in the Puranas or it may be folktale. I don't remember the source of the story. It is a story about a king who remembers that in his last life, he used to give one fruit as dhanam every day. And as a result of it, he was able to become king in this life. So by some punyam, he remembered his past life action and saw that he was very poor then, but he gave out one coconut or one fruit to some poor person. And as a result of that punyam, he became a king. So he said, okay, I gave one fruit in that life, let me give also one fruit in this life so that my next life also I'll be king. It so happened, next life he is again born as a poor. And he again remembers his both previous lives. And he is shocked. What happened? I was king and I diligently, I gave one fruit as dana, charity every day. Why am I then born as a beggar now? He went to one sadhu, very well learned acharya. And then that acharya, by his divination, he was able to perceive the many different lives of this person. And then he said, look, boss, you completely misinterpreted your recollection of your last life. When you were poor, when you had very less means, then you did charity of one fruit every day with great difficulty, but you did. So that is why you generated lot of punyam, and you were born in next life as a king, so that with lot of means, so that you can do more and more charity and benefit your citizens. But what you did, you hoarded all the wealth and only gave for namesake charity of one fruit every day. Obviously, you are not doing punya like that, right? When you had very less means, then you gave that. Giving that fruit was itself a big thing. But when you had so many means, then also you give that puny fruit. Obviously, you did papam rather than punyam. Your store of punya all wiped out. So again, you are born as fool. So the gist of that story is we are all born because of our past actions, and when we are born, we have certain kind of swabhava ingrained in us. This is what I called as deep swabhava or deep personality. And in our day-to-day activities, and today we have a lot of people saying that when I read book, when I teach, I am a Brahmana. When I do business, I am a Vaishya. When I do management activity, I am a Kshatriya. Or when I do household work, I am a Shudra. See, this is a most superficial thing I have heard, to be honest, because it is not understanding what the Varna is all about. It is not about your day-to-day actions. We all have to do all kinds of actions. That is fine. The Varna designation is about deeper personality. The deeper personality of where we stand in our long journey to moksha. It does not matter whether you're Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, or Vaishya, or anybody, or those who are outside of this, who are called as Varna Shankara, mixture of Varna. That is another term which has got lot of bad demonized completely. Basically, all these designations are about your deep personality. What kind of guna compositions you have, what kind of samskara you've inherited from your last life, and how you can work on it to attain better life and ultimately attain moksha. So, what the Dharma Shastras, Manusmriti, and others says, whatever varna you are, if you're doing your swadharma, even Gita says, swadharmo nidhanam shreya. It is better to die performing your own swadharma rather than somebody else does. So if you do your swadharma, that swadharma is all about working on your inner personality, the deeper personality, the substratum of personality, and slowly transforming. So if you even if you die by doing while doing on as part of your duty, swadharma, even then you attain nishreyasa, that is ultimate goal of moksha. Ultimately, why? Because it is giving you punyam. So we have to understand our deeper personality, and we have to align our life and activities to. And Shastra is our guide to that. Here there is no high, low, or anything. See that those are all very transactional considerations. Everybody can see. But I have there is a inscription of I think King Vemadeva. I just forgot his name. Vema Reddy. I think he was a king from Andhra Pradesh. He was a Shudra king. He was not feeling inferior about his Shudra status. He said, I come from the feet of the Vishnu, and it is now, since the Kshatriyas are no longer there, it is now my duty to protect Dharma. He is doing his Swadharma, and he will gain punyam for that. It doesn't matter who he is. That is why it is important to understand when we speak about Dharma. Dharma is not a one size fits everyone. Dharma is tailor made for everybody. Well, Samanya Dharma is common for everybody. Vishesha Dharma change. And when you do this Vishesha Dharma and Samanya Dharma, because Samanya Dharma is most core, then you slowly act upon this deeper personality, which is your Swabhava, which is your Varna. Then you will attain purification of the mind. Then over the course of maybe this life or maybe that many lives, you will attain the highest. That is why we have all the kinds of saints and sadhus and liberated people born in all kinds of communities. It is not just one community which has produced sons and realized people. All communities, all the bhakti saints, all the different saints, they belong to so many different communities. It is the spirituality is not a prerogative, is not a monopoly of any one community, any one varna. Contrary to the popular understanding, this is the real ground fact. Why? Because ultimate goal of moksha is open for everybody. The path may be different, but ultimately, regardless of your path, the stages you have to go through is that that you have to overcome your kama, krodha, etc. Purify your mind, transmute your inner gunas, travel from tamas to sattva, and then overcome sattva. And there is no one path to do this. You can achieve this through Raja Yoga, you can achieve this through Bhakti Yoga, you can achieve this through Karma Yoga, you can achieve this through Mantra Sadhana, you can achieve this through Varnashrama Dharma. All paths are possible, they have the capability to give. Even the Purana says that Varnashrama Dharma itself is a form of Bhakti. Just imagine. Karma itself is a form of Bhakti. So we have to have this more open, more subtle, more nuanced understanding. It is not that you cannot change your svabhava, but changing is not easy. It takes lot of time. Take Vishwamitra's for example. In the Ramayana, his story is given, in Puranas also given. He was born a Kshatriya, but through his tapasya, he became Brahmana. He became a Brahma Rishi at that. But he did not become that in one day or 2 days. It required millions of years of tapasya. Even from Kali Yuga standards, it's not possible for us to do millions of years of tapasya, right? So we have to take birth again and again and again. In Kali Yuga, it will not take million years. The beauty of Kali Yuga is that you can attain the highest goal in shortest amount of time. So that is one good quality about Kali Yuga. The rest are all is problematic. This is given in Puranas. It's not that I am making this up. In Mahabharata and Puranas, it's given. One redeeming quality of Kali Yuga is that you can attain the highest knowledge in shortest amount of time. That means shortest amount of effort. But even that, though we may not take millions of years, but it will not take 1 day or 1 month here. It will take many, many lives. So we have to not lose the larger picture. We have to have the Shraddha in our Shastra, Shraddha in our Guru, Shraddha in our Dharma, and do what we can to improve our life. See, none of this discussion on Varna, Ashrama, contrary to how they have been politicized today, they do not have any direct bearing on our Artha and Kama positions. That is, they do not negatively affect our, for example, in the previous pre-colonial society, and wherein there was Bollet-Duri system and wherein there was pre-colonial community-based system, every community had means to attain their livelihood. It is not that some people, there may be somebody who is very rich, somebody who is not that rich, that is fine. But there was no unemployment problems, there was no poverty, the way we understand, because everybody had guaranteed employment. There was livelihood was guaranteed. So everybody had means to attain their survival, their sustenance in a satisfactory manner. So the pursuit of dharma, the pursuit of moksha, or whatever the Shastra says in this context, Varnashrama or whatever else, it did not hamper, it did not affect one's ability to gain artha or money and survive, to gain happiness in the means that is available. Everybody had this, everybody was able to pursue this. Different means of ritualistic mechanism through Varnashrama Dharma was given for different people to attain that ultimate moksha, to work towards that moksha.
So Nitinji, you mentioned that the Varna was basically dependent upon the gunas that a person carries. So I just wanted to know, like today we describe the Varna, or we have now translated it into caste. So we describe caste of a person based upon his birth, right? So how accurate is that?
See, we need to understand that now what goes by caste is basically political identity. We have, but leaving that, if we speak about Varna and Jati, Jati is by birth, by definition that is there, and we all, that is a basic reality we cannot simply deny. I am born to my parents. I am born to this family, and this family has is born to some other family, we have a lineage, we have inherited a lineage, we are part of a community. It is futile and unnecessary to deny this reality that we do not, there is no immaculate birth. We are not product of immaculate birth. Somehow, Swarg said, it's not happening. So Jati is a reality. We are all part of a family. We have a certain family traditions, certain family rituals, certain family responsibilities. Even though in today's, what shall I say, urban setup, this family system has been disturbed, dismantled to great extent. So we do not have uh, communities. For example, in the pre-colonial society, different families indulged in different kind of, for example, activities. Some some were potters, some were fishermen. So they inherited these jobs, but that does not happen today. But family traditions, family rituals, family festivals, the way we do certain things, we inherit. I don't see any reason why we should discard our inherited heritage. For that is very important to me. And if for somebody it is not important, that is fine for them to disinherit it. But I personally don't see a reason. I think we should be proud of our inheritance, whatever that may be. If we do not like something in our inherited past, then perhaps we can do better than that and create a new heritage for our future people. That is one aspect of Jat. But the other is Varna is a Shastric term, Shastric framework. And it is also by definition, it is defined by birth. See, Varna has a different, it is a not easy category to understand. There are three criteria. One is the birth, one is karma, one is the guna, the third is karma. But they are not in isolation the way some people understand. Today there are camps, political camps, so to speak. One say Varna is only by birth, one say Varna is by only guna, one say one is only by karma. It is not that they are an isolated groups. They are all interconnected. How? Whatever karma I do in this life, it determines the kind of birth I have in next life, the kind of swabhava I have in next life, and that swabhava is nothing but varna, the deep personality. And based on the deep personality, which is my swabhava, that is, which is my guna, when I do the karma in my next life, then I again progress, and based on that, I get another life and another kind of swabhava, another kind of swadharma. See, it's all connected. It is all connected. So, birth, swabhava, and karma, they are all connected. Now, in many of our cases, it so happened our society has moved forward. This Kali Yuga, there are a lot of different factors at play. For many, for example, Varna Shankara is a reality today for most of us. There are certain communities which has maintained the Varna. Varna, as I said, in the Shastras, that by definition, in for example, in Smritis, for example, in Manusmriti, by definition it says, when a Brahmana, the person born from a Brahmana mother and Brahmana father, in a legitimate dharmic marriage, that person is a Brahmana. And that applies to all the other Varnas and all the mixture of Varnas also. So that is by definition, that is how the Varna is defined. It is by birth. The Swabhava is inherited from the parents. That is also. However, today, what has also happened, it also, the Shastras gives criteria wherein we lose our Varna. For example, if somebody does not do their Swabhava, Swadharma, then that person, if in a particular family for 7 generations, they do not do their Swadharma and take up dharma of somebody else, that is Paradharma, then that Paradharma itself becomes their Swadharma. For example, if a Brahmana family does Kshatriya activity for 7 generations, then they no longer remain a Brahmana, they become Kshatriya. So that is a fall from Varna, and that is how it happened. That these are all. This is not a mere statement about social reality. This is a statement about deeper personality. the spiritual reality, as the reality of our gunas, why it is being initiated to give clarity to people to understand where they stand in this journey towards moksha and do take proper measures that is beneficial. So there is no doubt that Varna is by birth, but that birth is connected to our previous karmas, and that is connected to our karmas that we do now. It is connected to our swabhava, because Varna is swabhava. They are not different. It is swabhava. Swabhava means our inner personality, our deeper personality, so to speak. I hope this clarifies the question.
Right, right. Nitinji, we discussed about Dana a few minutes back. So my colleague Tanya is having a question about it. She's asking about the recent controversy regarding the Kanyadan thing. So she's asking about that. Is Kanya, what is your perspective on Kanyadan? Is Kanya considered an object in Hindu traditions?
Uh, Wonderful question, important question, especially for people in our generation and next generations. Because we have all been brainwashed by our university education and our media, academia, to develop a certain perspective on life, which is problematic by definition. Now, consider this: is knowledge an object? Because we speak about Vidyadhanam. The teacher that teaches us in our school is doing Vidyadhanam. But is Vidya or knowledge an object? Is she giving some Vidya, putting it in a tiffin box or something? Or putting it in our pockets? No, right? Vidyadhanam is not an object. Pranadana. We give, or Raktadhanam. Raktadhanam is fine. You say blood is an object. Fine. What is the Pranadhanam? You know, our soldiers give up their life to save this country. Is giving their act of giving their life is some form of an object. Look, take my life, put it into your heart, you live one more life, right? So, whatever is given as dana, it need not be an object. It is not an object. Giving dana does not, see, danam is not charity. That is why I said, when we think of charity, we think about giving money, giving food. So, we have a definition of wherein we give some physical object. But that is not the case with Kanyadan or any form of dana. What is Kanyadanam? Kanyadanam is connected to, is part of the same ritual in this ritual of marriage. There is Panigrahanam and there is Kanyadanam. They are connected rituals. The father or the parents, the father gives away the bride, and the bridegroom, the husband, takes the bride as belonging to him. What is this belonging here? You say it is again an object. Is it so? It is not so. What is happening in this procedure which people do not understand? We all have this, many families have this practice, right? That women after their marriage change their surnames. Sometimes they even change their first name. Now that is considered a regressive practice and people keep their parental surname also. But what is actually they don't realize is there is a reason why this practice happened. What is happening in a marriage is we all are born in a particular family. That means we all born in a particular kulam, community, particular family lineage. That is, we belong to a particular gotra. That is, we are born in a particular gotra, which is a family lineage. Through this ritual of marriage, the kanya is given from this gotram to the gotra of the husband. That is why that family becomes her family. It is not that she is an object. There is a change in the gotra of that person by the ritual of marriage. Now, whatever her actions, her swadharma, her duties will be part of that kulam in which she is marrying. That is why the change in surname. So the pani grahanam, wherein the husband accepts the hand of the wife is basically he's accepting and welcoming her into his family, into his kulam, not just the family, into his gotra meta, into his blood lineage, into the lineage from the rishi. So there is a change in goal. It's a ritualistic change. And that is why Kanyadanam is there. At a social context, what is happening? In normal Danam, and when we give, for example, food or something like that, in the ritual when performed, it is said, we are giving this to this person. Idam na mama, I no longer have the right on this. I am giving this food to somebody else. This food does not belong to me anymore. But when you give the Kanyadana, in the Kanyadanam, that idam na mama is not there in the mantra. The father is not saying, I have given her to the husband. Is she no longer connected to me? I am out of the picture. Sorry. It does not say like that. There is no idam mama in the ritual itself. If you understand the ritual, if you understand the mantra, then all this misconception goes. First, it is not the only object which is given as dhanam. So here Kanya is not treated as an object. The Dharmashastras are very clear. There is a Dharmashastra discussion in one of the texts wherein the question arises. Because we do Kanya Dhanam, does that mean the Kanya is an object? The Mimamsakas, starting from Jaimini and all, they clearly say that no, Kanya is not an object. We have a clear explicit answer by our Acharyas even 2000 years back, not today. Perhaps they had a divine intuition that today all the inimical forces will raise this question. So it is not an object. She is not an object. Second, here Dhanam is used in a sense that in our traditional perspective, wherein the duty of the father, the Manusmriti says, Pita tu rakshati kaumari, the Pita, the father protects the girl when she is in her childhood. And when after she is married, it is the duty of the husband to protect her. And when she is old, then it is the duty of the son to protect her. This is the duty. This is not a statement to oppress women. It is basically giving the duty of the men folk. And this protection does not mean mainly physical protection. It also means, for example, in the case of father, giving her education. In the case of husband, giving her, when he welcomes her to his family, ensuring that she is happy, ensuring she is well adjusted, ensuring she has enough freedom to do what she wants, ensuring she is in the stays in the path of dharma. All this comes under the term of raksha. So what is happening by this Kanyadamanam and Panigrahanam? The father is giving her hand in marriage to the bridegroom, and the bridegroom is accepting her hand in marriage from the father. And in this, basically what is happening, the Rakshati part, the duty of the father, is being transferred to the husband. And that is why after marriage, the wife and husband relationship between becomes more supreme, more important than the daughter's relationship to her birth parents. It is not that the relationship goes away. It is important. It will always, the Maika will always remain most close to her heart. But the influence, the husband's role becomes important because he takes up the role of a guru, he takes up the role of a companion, and they both together pursue dharma, artha, kama, moksha together. See, together, sahadharma is the gist of vivaha. The husband cannot pursue, the man cannot pursue grihastha dharma without the wife. He cannot do, he is not eligible to perform yajnas, he is not eligible to perform dhanam. He cannot actually perform dhanam. Do you know that? Dhanam in the grihastha manner, he cannot pursue that. He may give whatever money he wants, that is fine for charity, but he cannot do dhanam without the wife. And similarly for the woman also, she becomes sahadharmacharini of the husband. She becomes the half, the one who supports, one who by her very presence facilitates the accomplishment of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Not just by the husband. When whatever husband gains, the half is transferred automatically to the wife because they are pursuing it together. So today it is said, no, see, wife do not have a separate property, women do not have separate property in pre-colonial India, all those things are said. The fact is, the husband and wife are jointly own the property. Whatever belongs to husband automatically belongs to the wife. But whatever belongs to the wife do not belong to the husband automatically. The Stridhana she gets from her parental home, the Dharma Shastra is very clear. It is her own property. Nobody can take it. Nobody has any right. That is the Dharma Shastra. So Dana here does not. I think that the statement was we should give up Kanya Danam and take up Kanya Man. Kanya Dan is Kanya Man, as one of my friends noted in his Facebook post. Kanya Dan is Kanya Man because Kanya is treated as something so precious that that activity is giving her away, give immense punyam to the parents, and she is the Lakshmi who brings immense punyam to the household in which she is marrying. So unless you only those persons who are completely deracinated from our Hindu worldview will see the whole thing as oppressive because for them marriage itself is oppressive. The institution of marriage, the conception of marriage is oppressive. They would rather be in a live-in relationship or a one-night stand or such things than this. But they don't realize that even in those relationships there is a lot of oppression. But still they defend that oppression. But they want to dismantle this institution that works. Irrespective, see, all institutions on the ground has faults. Even marriage institution is not perfect. That is because it is not perfect because humans are not perfect. But the Shastric rituals are not imperfect. The conception behind Kanyadanam or Panigrahanam, it is not oppressive. It does not reduce women to object. It elevates her to something which is most precious. Someone who is most precious. Someone who is so precious that it is the duty of the menfolk of the family to ensure that she is protected, she is facilitated as much as possible. So we need to understand it this from this perspective.
Today, in the contemporary times, we see many social problems around us. So, is the practice of Samanya Dharma, can it be a solution to those?
Yes, definitely. In a word, if I have to answer, yes, I have a whole section, small section, but a comprehensive section in the book on this. Give a very simple example. What is the what is the driving force for most crimes today? For example, say murder, robbery, and everything else. It is basically that we give in to our karma, krodha, etc. So, what is the solution to the practice of Samanya Dharma tenets such as ahimsa, asteya, not stealing, not killing, not violence, right? So, practice of Samanya Dharma is the most basic way. In fact, it is the only real way to attain so-called world peace, harmony, because yes, through Samanya Dharma you can transform an individual. The rest of the things that are in place, for example, danda, the concept of danda means punishment. It's an important aspect of Raja Dharma. That is, the Raja or the government or they have the power to punish. That is there so that to punish those who are doing crimes, those who are doing adharma, and also as a deterrent to prevent others from doing adharma. But as you know, despite whatever kind of punishment is there, it acts as a deterrent to some extent, yes, but it does not reduce crime to zero. It does not solve it. The only true solution is spiritual transformation, inner transformation, wherein one gains control over the one's senses, one transforms one's inner nature, and that is possible by practicing Samanya Dharma. to some way, to the extent possible. So that is why the practice of all these tenets are very crucial. And unfortunately, our education system does not touch upon it. Education means science, math, history, geography, get grades, and then go to some university, become completely brainwashed, and then do Bharat Tere Tukde Tukde marches, and then take a MNC job, go to US, or perhaps in India, go to IM and go to job and earn lot of money, have family, kids. See, all of them are okay. But what is missing in this life is sense of purpose, sense of meaning, sense of inner transformation. We are living like uh, you know in the in the in the Durga Saptashati, the first in the first adhyaya, the demon, the Rakshasa, not in the first, the Madhukaitapa, there is a Madhukaitapa who is killed by Mahakali. The Madhukaitapa, we are like that Madhukaitapa. It is like Madhukita, the bees who are always working and working and working. They do not know anything in life. We are like that, always pursuing the desires and whatever we want without any meaning in life, without any purpose in life, without seeing the larger picture. That has to be changed. And education has to include these elements of dharma, this worldview, this Hindu worldview of Purusharthas, the notion of Samanya Dharma, Vishesha Dharma. Only then our life will be meaningful. And that is how in the past people lived. They did not, it did not matter, because in the past, in a pre-colonial society, the knowledge and the culture and practices were transmitted in communities, from father to son, from teacher to student. One way was within the family, the other way was through the teacher, apprenticeship or whatever it is. Therein, all this, it was practical in nature because all these cultural aspects, spiritual aspects, dharmic aspects, everything was ingrained in students. But that is not there.